idea of Aina saying the cross-contamination from neighbouring farms, right?
Yes, but that's far more difficult, because I always say if the Sahara sand falls down with the rain, but also without rain nowadays, on our cars outside, that's thousands of kilometers, then you can imagine what pesticides do when you use it. But it's of course crazy, I would say, if an organic farmer does not use pesticides, and you find in the labs a minimum splinter of residue, you devaluate the organic product to conventional, and also the food waste what's come after us behind that. That's crazy, that's insane. And I think for this new legislation and the approach for that is important for the farmers, but also for the processors and trade, is that we come to common sense on that. That we discuss with each other. If you are in an organic business, you have to know what product you are producing, how you bring it to the market. That's your own responsibility. It cannot be that only a single lab, we can also have some insecurities in the lab results. That's also another discussion. But we cannot say if we find an X level of residue, then that an organic product is not organically grown, but it has. And we need on that, when it comes to research and innovation, some research money for that, to be more aware of what is happening. We need also the sector for that, because the knowledge, what is happening, what's going on, is in the sector. So in Holland we managed to bring out an organic reliable expert team to the government to help them to implement, to do the right implementation for the new legislation. And it would be a good present today on this anniversary if the Organic Union would also implement an organic reliable expert team all over Europe. You can use the people, the farmers, the traders and processors with all the knowledge on this special part.
As you say, the knowledge is there. Nathalie, if I can come back to you now, you've heard from the different perspectives, the research academic side of things, the farmer's perspective, or at least the organisation, the farm organisations, the retail and the processors. You said the adoption of proposals would be for the second part of 2023. And the plan is to address the full dimensions of sustainability, as you said earlier. But how feasible is this, and how would it work in practice? And then I want to pick you up on a point on the favourable food environment, which was discussed last week at the advisory board, or the advisory group. That sounds like a nice idea, linking supply with demand, and in order to stimulate the accessibility of sustainable food to a broader audience, something that Aina also explained in her introduction. So maybe if you want to tease out some of those points, Nathalie.
On the food environment, yes, this is a concept we're working on quite actively at the moment, because we realize that there are many ways to nudge consumers towards healthy and sustainable choice. And it's, yes, labeling is one option, one tool, but it's only one tool. We know that, for instance, the consumers, they have very little time for choice. We know that. They make up their choice when they go to supermarket very quickly. So label is one thing, but that's not all. So we are looking at the food environment more broadly, and looking at what sort of action beyond purely labeling can nudge a consumer towards the right choice. So there is an important role here for the retailers, because how food is presented, when it's presented, for advertisement. So, and we are really starting a reflection on what motivates consumer behavior. So to find the right tool a little bit, definitely labeling will be useful, because consumers need to be informed, and very importantly, what to say, they need to be trust from consumer into the label, because when trust is difficult to build, but it's easy to lose, and we all know that. So that's why for the sustainable label, we want to discuss really what is the right option, how to make it work. So there are quite a number of activities we're looking at to make sure that more broadly the food environment will be conducive to the consumer making the right choice. But a bit of research, a bit more thinking on this, but really we believe it's one important avenue for progress, because without the consumers, the supply will not come, because if you don't have a market, it's difficult to continue counting on growth. But as I said, the consumer is not alone in his choice. Part of it is also biased or programmed somehow.
And this label, the sustainability label, that would basically go on to products that respected environmental considerations, etc. Who would monitor that, Nathalie?
Sorry, okay. So the label first, we are going for next year to propose a framework first. So the first question we're asking ourselves is, what sort of label do we want? What sort of components? Will that be mandatory? Will that be voluntary? How does that work? Then in the second stage, we will need to look at defining perhaps more with experts and in a multi-stakeholders way, with consultation of all, which component to use. And there is a lot of discussion, for instance, I know one concern about the environmental performance of the product. And here I really want to say we hear concern. We know that there are risks if you only do a small environmental performance. If it's very narrow, if you take only one or two narrow environmental performance, let's say only the use of pesticide or perhaps only water use, you can create bias or an intended trade-off. So we believe we will try to do our best in order to have a broad environmental performance that takes as widely as possible the benefits of the environment. But I'm sure you are fully aware it's not always simple because we all know there are, one thing can be good for one aspect of the environment, maybe less good for biodiversity, and maybe less good than again for a social aspect. So this is really a work in progress, but that will take a little bit, a few years.
Sure.
For next year, we will only define the main principles. And then we all need to work together to define what would be the right label.
The label, the sustainability label. Now, okay, Jan wants to jump in there. So Jan, and then I'm going to go to Pierrick and Aina, because obviously this is something, you say that there might be a narrow scope when it comes to the sustainability label, that this is work in progress. So Jan, I'm just going to... Sorry? Oh yes, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I want to interact because on this labeling, and when I understood it right from you, we don't need new labels. So organic agriculture, organic or European label is clear. It's the only legislation label we have. We should focus fully on that. If it comes to labeling, then I think the organic movement brought this natural branding, new kind of natural branding, without plastic, without banderol, without anything. Now in this new legislation, natural branding is not seen as packaging. It's incredible. So we should change that as soon as possible. That's a big headwind, you could say, as Frans Timmermans said, to the development of availability of organic product in the change. So natural branding should be used directly as a pre-packed product. That's very important. And I think we don't need European citizens, not worldwide. We don't need any more different sustainability brands or whatever. Okay. Go for organic, and if it is public, somebody wants to do it. I think a lot of big companies, corporates have tried to do it. They will struggle with the end consumer because they don't accept it.
Just a quick point of clarity, Nathalie. There's still discussions whether this should be mandatory or voluntary, right? This has still not been decided, or is this not?
No, it's not decided. Yeah. We are now in the development of the impact assessment, looking at different options. So it could be voluntary, could be mandatory. All options are on the table and beside, and you have a public consultation going on. So please feel free to reply. What I would just like to flag is not just environmental; it will be also about social. Performance economic. So it's
sustainability in its three dimensions.
You have to have the three dimensions.
Okay. Pierrick, we'll just do a table round on this because I think it's piqued your interest. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to open it up to the floor for questions because, as I say, this panel goes on until 5:30. So Pierrick first, then Beate, and then Aina.
Quite quickly.
Yeah, sure.
I think we need to promote the label and organics to consumers, but also to people who vote. In France, I'm really surprised that the Minister of Agriculture never say organic in his when he talk in public. So it's really important to have support, political support.
You'll need to talk to your new minister when that comes about, right?
And also a promotion that really talk about the subjects. Actually, we are thinking about a promotion in TV, talking about organic, but it's difficult to talk about pesticide. So we have to talk about organic without talking about pesticides, and there is a lot of political lobbies that are have influence around it. So it's really important. I don't know if I talk about price and taxes or.
Will we just go around
Okay.
and then we'll just see we have time left? Okay, please, Beate.
Yeah, talking about this labeling, I'm a bit skeptical to share that with you. And at FIBL, we used to compare a lot of sustainability standards. And we realized actually that, or actually not we compared it, but other compared, and we realized that organic usually has a quite bad scoring compared to the other standards. And then my colleagues started to, okay, why is that? And the reason is that the one point is, I mean, how do you define the scoring? For example, which is the standard thing, is you check in the standards, do they mention this and that and that, but nobody checked whether this is really verified and whether this is really done. It's also then what are the indicators you pick out, and I do think it's extremely complex to have such, and it's always a weighing. You always say, okay, I have to weigh, this is more important than that important, or that is more important. And therefore, I'm warning. I mean, is it really a label? Because I think we narrow down to a simplification which might not really be what the consumer needs. I think the consumer needs a transparency, and I do think we have good logos, but I do think it's impossible to pack everything in a logo, and we have to be very aware whatever you kind of indicate is always then saying, okay, I judge this and this, but I ignore that and that.
Nathalie, do you want to react, and then we'll go to Aina? Do you want to react to that, I suppose, critique of the notion of a sustainability label?
No, I fully agree. It's very complicated, and defining the criteria would be educators is not an easy way. What I want to say is that what we are talking about at the moment is a framework. The word labeling framework, the word does matter. We are not talking about a logo at this stage. We are just, as part of the legislation, thinking what could be, a right framework, the right approach to inform consumers about the different dimensions of sustainability. And there are many, many possibilities. We are still in impact assessment, and many solutions possible. So please, very happy to hear about your thought, and please do, as I said, we will be doing consultation this year, but we are aware and we don't have a fixed solution yet. It's for discussion.
It's a work in progress. Aina, please, your point of view.
Well, adding labels, it's adding complexity for consumers and also adding controls for everyone, and for farmers, for processors, for sellers. And my comment would be, why not revise the horizontal regulations to walk towards more sustainable food systems? I don't know if it was today or yesterday that the European Food Safety Agency said that they are postponing the decision on glyphosate because they don't have time. So if we are lacking on resources and human resources, and now there's a lot of information coming out from this process that is going on, thinking of how to move towards more sustainable food systems, and use that knowledge just to revise the horizontal regulation instead of adding more complexity with new labels or because in the end we're now aiming for a 25% share of the land, but we should be aiming for that 100%
As Jan said earlier on, yeah.
because we can do it. It's not.
You seem to be on the same voice when it comes to this idea of the sustainability initiative, but as Nathalie says, it's work in progress, and I suppose everyone's coming to the table with ideas, and the Commission is in listening mode from what I can understand. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's your turn. Hands up, who would like to ask a question? The gentleman at the back with the beige jacket, right back the back there, please. Third from the back. Maybe introduce yourself and also say to whom the question is addressed, if you don't mind. Thank you very much.
Hi, Antonio Compagnoni, council member from Italy of IFOAM Organics Europe and representing CSQA Certificazione in Italia. My question is a consideration about the sustainability in one side, but also what is the panelist vision of the organic regulation. The sustainability from IFOAM Organics International is not only 3-dimensional, but is also 5-dimensional. It includes also culture, and I think it's quite important nowadays, and also responsibility. But apart from definitions, I think the question is that we have a different, we have a very large Europe with different visions, and sometimes there is not a coherent approach and direction where to go. I see very well the strategies and the new Green Deal, but the EU regulation, how do you see it? You see it as the final word of organic, meaning that the organic is the EU regulation, or is a starting point where maybe organization like used to be before the regulation and now still doing in different parts of Europe, having their own voluntary schemes that touches all the sustainability pillars and are based on the principle organic. That would leave a clearer vision. If we have a kind of mandatory regulatory system that is simple enough as an entry point, and then you have something more developed that we can develop in different ways in different parts of Europe and in different approaches. How do you see this?
And who are you addressing? Who are you addressing the question to?
To all the panelists.
To all the panelists. Okay, all of you. Well, dive in. Whoever would like. Jan, you've got your hand up first. Work away.
I can try to dive in if the microphone comes in. Yeah. I think organic should be used as a front runner. So we are a front runner already for years. So organic should get free green corridors. So don't come with other more legislation, etc. I think what I see is that also in processing and trade, and also in farmer side, that some farmers or processors and traders say we don't go into organic because all this control system, and if I want to step in organic, I'm more criminal in advance because I have to prove that I'm working with organic products. That's not a positive announcement for being in the organic scheme. So we have to be honest. If the movement increases fast, you get also players in the market that are not so quite sure maybe. But why should we punish then all the 100% organic actors in the market with extra legislation? So we have to find the right answer for that. And I see a lot of new initiatives, not bad initiatives, because we need the organic farmer sides also to convert to organic. So we should cooperate. And it's clear that if organic farming is increasing, then also the rest of the market will come afterwards. But important for this is that, and that is a politics question also, or point, if we want to have 25% or 100%, I agree with you, 100% organic, please give us facilitators to arrange that. And then it's not possible to still have a discussion about glyphosate, or don't have to do the discussion. We have to stop this kind of discussions. But I think organic, from my point of view, should be ahead and stay ahead. Of course, we are never there. We have always to improve also the organic movement further on. But I think the whole movement, that's not only the farmers, that's also processing traders, also the retail, also the consumer, who's most of the time not involved in our movement, but they will buy our products if we have the transparency and 100% organic answer. And maybe also on the advertising, or the how do you say it? We have a new project on, how do you say it, advertisement? How do we call the new
promotion?
Promotion, yes,
policy?
The new promotion as Holland, Belgium, Sweden and Finland, the coming 3 years. We will make promotion for the organic label, for the EU label.
Thank you for that, Jan. Nathalie, if you'd like to intervene.
Okay, the legislation, as I say, is still work in progress, so what we propose, I can't tell you no. How I would see it is that it's a legislation for the whole food chain. So it's not just for one type of agriculture, it's for, we want, what we know where today you are front runner in organic, you are doing voluntarily efforts. What we want is the whole food chain to evolve towards sustainability. So it will be for everyone, and we see it as a beginning of a process, because I think gradually we need to improve all at all levels. So how I see it, it's the beginning of a process towards sustainability, so we will not start necessarily very high, and I would expect the organic sector to stay as front runner, but everyone needs to evolve. I mean, we see that the requirement, the rules should evolve over time, over 10, 20 years, if necessary, to move the whole food chain towards sustainability, because the challenge is so big. We need the whole food chain to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to reduce the impact on biodiversity, and to work more in looking at more fairness across the food chain. So this is why we don't see it as against. I mean, it is not against organic. We hope you will be front runner, but we hope you help us also to drag all actors of the food chain towards sustainability, because this is essential if we want to meet the challenge that the Executive Vice President explained at the beginning. We need the whole food chain to move. So for that, we believe part of it is to be done via regulation, because not everybody is prepared to take the risk voluntarily. But there will be always, I think, different level of engagement and different level of ambition, and there is room for, different type of actors with different type of performance.
Okay, Nathalie, thank you. Eric, could we get a mic up to Eric, please?
Yes, thank you. I'm policy manager at IFOAM Organics Europe, and to follow up on this topic, I have a question to Pierrick and Nathalie, because like Aina said, there are many new labels on product in many countries that claim to be, sustainable. We have A nature environmental value in France, and my question is, to what extent does that explain part of the issues with the market at the moment? And the question is to Nathalie, when you will try to define what sustainable food is, how will you ensure that this will not create unfair competition for organic, and that it will not open the door to greenwashing labels, that it will not undermine as well the organic market? Because, like you said, everybody needs to do better, but how do we make sure that this will not impact negatively the development of organic?
Okay, Pierrick first, maybe?
I think this kind of labels are dangerous for organic label. We have, I don't know in English, but HVE in France, that is a new conventional label which give an illusion to consumers that it's organic, less expensive. And I think it's really dangerous for us. And I think we need to be more radical. I don't know how, but we need to be more radical in organic, to be more proud about what we are doing, and we need to go
beyond and further. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. We fair trade with all the things, and we need label to complete organic label, but not label to decrease and to give confusion in the consumer spirit.
Okay, Pierrick, thank you. Nathalie?
I want to say I agree with what you say. There is a multiplication of label currently in Europe, because there is a lot of demand from consumers. They want to know. You have a multiplication of label. Some of them are very good, some you don't really know. So the consumer, the feedback we have with the consumers is getting a bit lost in the multiplication of labels, and they do not necessarily know which one to trust. So this is an issue because it can undermine very well established labels. So we definitely do not want to undermine the organic label. We are thinking about the framework, about how to provide reliable information to consumers. It doesn't necessarily mean a new EU logo. I mean, we can think about different principles or rules. It can be, or maybe it's different. But what we see is that perhaps this multiplication of labels, not all of them perhaps the same strength, it do not necessarily help consumer. It can create confusion, and then they don't really know which one they should pay more for. So I think there is added value in having that discussion. What is the way forward, and how to perhaps to avoid having labels that confuse consumers. So please don't see it as a threat to organic. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to help consumers.
Beate, if I may, FIBL, your institute, your research institute, looking ahead towards 2030, what sort of projections are you coming up with, or what sort of, you look into the crystal ball in terms of the organic sector? Is it positive? Is it negative? What's sort of your impression over the next 8 years?
Well, I think we are in a good position. But we do have, as I said before, we have challenges ahead, and it depends very much on what we are doing the next years, and that is a key issue. And maybe let me give you a small story about, as I come from Research Institute, and I'm coordinating a research project where we compare organic with conventional agriculture in Kenya, India, and Bolivia. And we could also, after 10 or 12 years, we found out, we could show that in general, organic and conventional is equal in productivity and profitability. That is a key concern when you work in low-income countries. We also found out we could demonstrate, the assets with regards to environmental benefits, the soil fertility or biodiversity. But we also had crops where we thought, oh, now there we have really a yield gap of 50%. And we said, okay, why is that? And what can we do to overcome that? And then we looked at the system and said, okay, we need a more consequent systemic approach. So it was organic before, but now we really said, okay, we need to have the full-fledged, fully adapted varieties, more increasing the diversity of the cropping system, using biopesticides elaborated by us, very nutrient effective with local ingredients. So a couple of, and then most important, we introduced increased the diversity in the field by having plants or introducing plants which attract beneficials and other which will repel benefits. And with this whole approach, we could actually manage, we could close this yield gap. And for me, the learning out of this, and therefore I'm sharing, is that we have still huge knowledge gaps. That's my one learning, because this was all set up with international research institutes. There was a lot of knowledge there, and we knew that we need a systemic approach, but we just simply didn't dare to really fully consequently do it. My second learning is such research needs time, and it took us 10 or 12 years to do that. And actually in this case also we realized if we really want to see a change in the soil organic carbon, we need 10 to 12 years. It's nothing which we can do in 2 or 3 years. And that means we have to accept we have knowledge gaps, we need this knowledge. And so I was very happy when I saw that the Commission wants to dedicate 30% of the research funds to research which is relevant for organic agriculture. My question would be on what? What exactly is it? How do you dedicate it? How is it defined? And is it possible to monitor? Because I do think we really need, if we wanted to achieve that, there's a lot to do, but research and knowledge is a key issue to achieve.
And innovation. Aina, I'm going to give the last word to you. You mentioned something, and the point of clarity, that you're not a full-time organic farmer, that you're a part-time organic farmer. And you said something that struck a chord, I think, that access to land is a major issue. And as we see now, land prices are going through the roof, costs of inputs are going through the roof, etc. So where does that leave a farmer like you who wants to get involved in the movement, and maybe your peers as well, other farmers that you're aware of? Where do you see that going, and how would you like that to progress?
Well, I wish, for example, the common agricultural policy changed and liberate and historical rights disappeared forever, because this is also something that makes it more difficult to access land and is keeping the gap in the agricultural sector and concentrating the land rights and the land property in less and less hands year by year. Also, I come from a Mediterranean island where speculation on land for other purposes is also an issue, and also speculation on access to water. So it's not
You're from
just
the Balearic Islands, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And Mallorca. We have more than tourists there. We have